On the 16th of August, 2023, a woman arrived at the Mayo Clinic, one of the most respected hospitals anywhere in the world, barely clinging to life. Her organs were failing, her body had lost dangerous amounts of fluid, her temperature fluctuated wildly. Doctors worked desperately to stabilize her, but nothing made sense. This was Betty Bowman, a talented pharmacist known for her dedication to helping others and living a healthy lifestyle. Just 24 hours earlier, she had been perfectly fine. Now the medical team was racing against time, trying to save her without understanding what they were fighting. Test after test came back inconclusive. Her condition spiraled downward with every passing hour. What could cause a young, otherwise healthy woman to deteriorate this rapidly? As the investigation deepened, one disturbing possibility emerged. This wasn't caused by any disease. Betty Bowman came into the world in 1991 in Kansas. Her family instilled values of integrity, hard work, and compassion. Early on, she displayed focus, discipline, and an eagerness to succeed. Academically, she thrived, particularly in the sciences. Biology and chemistry fascinated her. After high school, she pursued pharmacy at the university level, where she quickly became one of the brightest students in her program. While others simply memorized what was required, Betty wanted to understand the deeper mechanics. How drugs interacted with the body, how chemical reactions unfolded, how lives could be saved or destroyed by what entered the bloodstream. Upon graduation, she started working in retail pharmacy before transitioning to a clinical role. Her colleagues admired her knowledge, work ethic, and genuine care for patients. She built a strong professional reputation early in her career. Connor Bowman entered the world 2 years later in 1993, also in Kansas, but his upbringing shaped him differently. He learned early how to manipulate situations to his advantage. Hard work and honesty weren't traits he valued. Instead, he focused on appearing competent while doing as little as possible. School didn't challenge him intellectually, but he had a way with words and knew how to charm the right people when it mattered. He enrolled in the same pharmacy program as Betty, but his motivations were distinct. While his classmates hoped to improve lives, Connor saw pharmacology as something else entirely, a map to understanding power over the human body. Eventually, he pursued medical school, chasing status and opportunity rather than a calling. Betty and Connor crossed paths during their time at university. Despite glaring differences in character, they began dating. Betty saw ambition and intelligence in him. Connor saw advantage. They married in May of 2021. Shortly after, Betty received an offer from the Mayo Clinic, a dream opportunity that required relocating to Minnesota. For her, it was a career-defining moment. For Connor, it meant something else, living in his wife's shadow. He was still in school. She was paying for everything: rent, tuition, groceries, bills. Connor had no income. He depended entirely on Betty's salary, and gradually he grew comfortable with that arrangement. Time passed and cracks began to show. Betty immersed herself in her work. She expanded her professional circle. She thrived. Connor, meanwhile, felt sidelined and resentful. To the outside world, they looked like a successful young couple. Behind closed doors, tension festered. Eventually, they decided to open their marriage. Boundaries were set, no emotional entanglements, only physical encounters. But those rules didn't hold. Betty began to suspect Connor had formed a deeper connection with someone else. When she confronted him, her suspicions were confirmed. This wasn't a mistake. It was real affection. For Betty, that was enough. She told him she wanted a divorce. To her, it seemed straightforward. To Connor, it meant losing his lifestyle, his financial security, his safety net. He was staring down debt and uncertainty. Divorce wasn't part of his plan. But there was another way. One that wouldn't just give him freedom, but money too. August 10th, 2023. Betty was home in Rochester, Minnesota, spending the evening with a close friend. They hadn't seen each other in a while and were catching up over conversation and laughter. Connor was home, but he usually avoided these gatherings. He kept to himself, showed little interest in Betty's social life, and rarely contributed to household tasks. That night, though, something was different. Without prompting, Connor announced he'd make smoothies. Betty was caught off guard. He never cooked. He never cared about what she ate. He'd never offered to prepare anything before. Still, she didn't stop him. Her friend noticed the unusual gesture but didn't dwell on it. Connor disappeared into the kitchen, gathered ingredients, and returned a few minutes later with 2 drinks. Betty took a sip. Immediately, she tasted something wrong. The flavor was bitter with a strange salty edge. She frowned. Her friend, curious, tried it too. The reaction was the same. It tasted awful. They set the glasses down and moved on with their evening. Connor said nothing. He didn't apologize. He didn't offer to remake them. He just watched, emotionless, and let the moment pass. Betty assumed it was a failed experiment in the kitchen. In reality, it was his first attempt, and it failed only because she didn't finish the drink. Connor understood his mistake. Next time, he'd need to be more careful. 4 days later, on August 14th, everything seemed normal. Betty came home exhausted after a long shift at the clinic. She'd been discussing pharmaceutical research with colleagues and was mentally drained. All she wanted was something quick to eat and a chance to rest. Connor had been waiting. His earlier attempt hadn't worked. The dose was too weak, the taste too obvious. This time he'd done his homework. He'd researched dosages, effects timelines. He knew what he needed. When Betty walked into the kitchen, he casually offered her a smoothie again. It seemed harmless. He'd done it before. She had no reason to be suspicious. She accepted the drink and finished it. This time, the taste was normal. Connor had adjusted everything. That night, Betty started to feel off. A headache crept in. Fatigue settled over her. She didn't think much of it. By the morning of the 15th, things were worse. She woke up nauseous, weak, and disoriented. Her stomach twisted violently. She couldn't keep anything down. Water made her sicker. By midday, she could barely stand. Her temperature climbed. Her muscles ached. By evening, she was so dehydrated she struggled to walk. Every attempt to eat triggered another wave of illness. On August 16th, she knew she needed help. She called the Mayo Clinic and described what was happening. Within hours, she was admitted in critical condition. Doctors found her blood pressure dangerously unstable. Her body was severely depleted. Scans revealed something horrifying. Sections of her intestines were dying. Tissue was decaying from lack of oxygen. Emergency surgery was performed immediately. They removed the necrotic portions, but they couldn't be sure the damage hadn't spread further. After the operation, Betty was moved to intensive care and hooked up to life support. But the decline didn't stop. Her kidneys began shutting down. She was placed on dialysis. Then her liver showed signs of toxic injury. Enzyme levels spiked. The medical team was baffled. She was young, healthy, with no prior medical issues. Nothing explained this rapid collapse. During this time, Connor was insistent. He kept telling doctors that Betty had a rare genetic disorder called HLH. The claim was bizarre. OOS typically manifests in infancy, and Betty had never shown symptoms. Her medical records contained no mention of it. Yet Connor repeated the story to staff, friends, and family, as if preparing everyone for an outcome he already expected. On August 19th, Betty's condition became critical. Multiple organs were failing. Fluid filled her lungs. Despite every intervention, her body was shutting down. On August 20th, 23 at 2:50 in the afternoon, Betty Bowman was pronounced dead. The medical team had no clear explanation, but Connor's behavior raised immediate red flags. He didn't demand answers. He didn't ask questions. He acted like someone who already knew. Immediately after her death, doctors pushed for an autopsy. Standard procedure, but Connor refused. He claimed Betty had always been against her body being used for medical purposes. That statement alarmed the staff. Families usually want answers when someone dies unexpectedly. Connor wanted the opposite. He wanted no investigation. Law enforcement took notice. Not only did he refuse an autopsy, he filed cremation paperwork within hours. He wanted her body gone as quickly as possible. Doctors intervened and placed a hold on cremation pending further review. The next day, Connor wrote Betty's obituary. He left out her mother and sister, the two people closest to her. He listed only himself and their dog. It was as if he were erasing her family from her life. Within 2 days, he began clearing the house. Photographs disappeared. Her belongings were boxed or discarded. Friends who visited noticed the home no longer felt like a place where a woman had lived. Shortly after, Connor invited someone over for drinks. That person expected to find a man in mourning. Instead, they found him relaxed, even upbeat. Late. He showed no sadness. He didn't mention Betty. A week later, another woman moved into the house. Betty's friends and family were horrified. His actions didn't just raise questions, they screamed guilt. Days after the funeral, Connor began talking openly about the $500,000 life insurance payout he'd received. He spoke about it casually, without remorse. There was no grief in his voice, just relief. Investigators took note. They dug into his finances and discovered significant debt. Student loans had piled up. His residency salary barely covered basics. Unlike Betty, who earned well and supported them both, Connor had been financially dependent. If Betty's death had truly been a shock, wouldn't he have been desperate for answers? Instead, he seemed satisfied. Investigators concluded that money was the motive. He had far more to gain from her death than from a divorce. Blood samples taken during Betty's hospital stay were reanalyzed. The results were chilling. Her system contained an extremely high level of colchicine, a medication used to treat gout, but lethal in overdose. The symptoms matched perfectly: nausea, vomiting, dehydration, organ failure, intestinal tissue death. Colchicine poisoning is rare because the drug isn't easy to obtain without medical access. Investigators immediately turned their attention to Connor. He had the knowledge. He had the training. He had previously worked at a poison control center, studying the effects of toxic substances. The pieces were falling into place. Detectives interviewed Betty's friend who'd been present on August 10th. She remembered the bitter smoothie. She recalled joking that Connor might have put something in it. At the time, it seemed absurd. Now it felt prophetic. Betty's mother and sister confirmed that she had been planning to leave him. She was unhappy. She wanted out. Investigators searched Connor's work computer. What they found was damning. Search history included lethal dose of colchicine, he had to hide poison, a can police track search history, and how to delete Amazon purchase records. He had researched it all. He had planned it carefully. His Amazon account revealed purchases of colchicine and sodium nitrate, substances unrelated to his medical work. He had been experimenting. On October 20th, 2023, Connor Bowman was arrested at his home in Rochester. He didn't resist. He remained calm, almost indifferent. Bail was set at $2 million. He couldn't post it. His accounts were frozen. His assets seized. He remained in custody. Betty's family demanded the harshest punishment possible. They wanted a life sentence. They wanted him to never walk free. Prosecutors built an airtight case. The trial hasn't happened yet. No date has been set. But the evidence is overwhelming. Betty's loved ones continue to wait for justice. They remember a woman who trusted the wrong person. A woman who wanted to move on with her life but never got the chance. Her friends have testified. Her family has spoken. And Connor Bowman will face the consequences of what he did.